This video is sponsored by Supply Handlers. You want to know something wild? The most dramatic moment from the entire opening weekend of the World Cup didn't involve France or Brazil or Argentina. It happened at the Estadio Azteca in front of 83,000 screaming fans in green, when a 35-year-old striker who was once left unconscious on a Premier League pitch with a fractured skull finally scored his first ever World Cup goal and broke down in tears. That was Mexico. That was Raul Jimenez. And if that's the kind of story this team is carrying into this tournament, then you would be very unwise to sleep on El Tri.
Hey fam, this is your chance to build the jersey collection you've been waiting for. The Goal 90 bundle deal is live. Buy 2 jerseys and get 10% off. Buy 3 and get 15% off. Buy 4 and get a massive 25% off. Club kits, country kits, retro classics, pick your favourites and save big. And yes, every order comes with free worldwide shipping. The deal runs only until the end of May. Goal 90 bundle deal. Buy more, save more. Shop now at Goal 90 Shop.
Let's talk about this squad because there's a lot more to it than most people realise. Start with the man who opened the scoring against South Africa, Julian Quinones. This guy walked into the World Cup on arguably the hottest goal-scoring run of any player in the tournament. Playing for Al Qadsiya in the Saudi Pro League, he finished the 2025-26 season with 33 goals in 31 league matches and 37 goals across all competitions. He won the Saudi Golden Boot, finishing ahead of Ivan Toney and yes, ahead of Cristiano Ronaldo. The Colombian-born forward naturalized as a Mexican citizen in 2023 after years of plying his trade in Liga MX with clubs like Tigres, Atlas and Club America, where he won 6 league titles along the way. Against South Africa, he took just 9 minutes to score the first goal of the entire tournament, nutmegging the goalkeeper with a precise low drive. Man of the match on his World Cup debut. Not bad for a player many outsiders didn't even know existed, and just when you thought the goals were done, up stepped the man who defines this generation of Mexican football, Raul Jimenez. The story of how he got to this World Cup is one you have to hear. In November 2020, playing for Wolverhampton Wanderers, Jimenez was involved in an aerial collision with Arsenal's David Luiz. He fractured his skull and was left unconscious on the pitch, requiring emergency surgery. Doctors feared for his life, many assumed his career was finished. Instead, he spent 8 months fighting his way back, returned to professional football wearing a protective headband and has worn it ever since. He scored 9 Premier League goals for Fulham in the season just ended, turned down MLS and Saudi money to stay in England, and signed with Wolves on a free transfer just days before this World Cup. He came into the tournament as Mexico's 3rd highest all-time scorer with 46 goals in 125 appearances. Against South Africa, he headed in from close range in the 67th minute, his first World Cup goal in his 7th appearance across 4 tournaments, and the tears that followed told the whole story. This is what football is about. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. There's a 17-year-old who hadn't even played senior club football 18 months ago in the squad, and from the cheers when he was brought on against South Africa, he is already a fan favourite, Gilberto Mora. You need to write this name down. The midfielder from Club Tijuana is the youngest player at the entire 2026 World Cup, 17 years and 240 days old when the tournament kicked off, making him the youngest player at the competition across all 48 nations. At 15, he became the youngest scorer in Liga MX history. At 16, he was the youngest player to ever debut for Mexico's senior national team. He also became the youngest winner of a FIFA-recognized men's international tournament when Mexico lifted the 2025 Gold Cup, eclipsing records held by Pelé and Lamine Yamal. He scored 3 goals at the 2025 Under-20 World Cup in Chile, nearly winning the Golden Boot. He recently signed a new 3-year deal with Tijuana that includes a €20 million release clause to facilitate a move to Europe. Real Madrid and Barcelona have reportedly been watching. When his Tijuana coach was asked about him at a press conference, the man literally stopped mid-sentence to applaud him. He strikes with his left with the right, he scores goals and he speaks to you in English, the coach said, grinning. If you ask him, he speaks German too. Mora himself is equally unfazed by the occasion. "We're at home," he said recently. "We have everything it takes to become champions." At 17, he genuinely believes it. Of course, none of this works without the engine in the middle. Edson Alvarez, Mexico's captain, is the heartbeat of this team. a midfield destroyer who was player of the tournament at the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup, scoring the winning goal against the United States in the final. His journey to this World Cup is its own story of resilience. He fell out of favour at West Ham, joined Fenerbahce on loan, then suffered a serious ankle injury that required surgery in February 2026. He made his return to the pitch with just a single minute of action in early May, immediately flew to Mexico to join the national team camp, and didn't even start the opening game, a purely tactical call from Aguirre to manage his fitness. This man covers every blade of grass, wins every loose ball, and gives the rest of the team the freedom to express themselves. Having him back fit and hungry for this tournament is enormous. Behind the forwards, Mexico's defensive backbone deserves serious credit. Johan Vazquez is one of the most underrated centre-backs in Serie A. He joined Genoa from Pumas Unam in 2021 and has quietly become a fixture in Italian football, so much so that he captains the club, and clubs like Inter Milan, Juventus and Atalanta have all reportedly monitored him for a transfer. This season he started all 36 league matches, playing over 3,200 minutes, and scored a spectacular goal against AC Milan. Alongside him, Cesar Montes provides the aerial presence and leadership that Vazquez's more mobile game complements perfectly. At 6'3", Montes scored 3 times at last year's Gold Cup and came into this tournament in strong form, scoring in Mexico's pre-tournament friendly wins over Australia and Serbia. The pair make for a centre-back partnership that is legitimately difficult to play against. Then there's the tactical mind pulling it all together. Javier Aguirre, in his third spell as Mexico manager, was there on the touchline in 1986 when Mexico hosted a World Cup as a player. He has now returned to do it again as a coach, a man who understands the pressure of the Azteca better than almost anyone alive. He won the 2025 CONCACAF Nations League and Gold Cup double, used 54 players over 22 matches in his preparation phase, and has drilled this squad to be relentless, compact and ferocious in transition. He doesn't promise spectacle. At a World Cup, he said, the team that plays the prettiest football does not always win. The team that knows how to compete does. His assistant, Rafa Marquez, the first man in history to captain a country at 5 World Cups, is set to take over after this tournament, which gives the entire coaching setup a sense of purpose and continuity that doesn't always exist in international football. And sitting in the squad room behind all of it is a 40-year-old man making history by simply being there. Guillermo Ochoa has now been named to 6 World Cup squads, a record he shares with Messi and Ronaldo. He's 40 years old, has been playing in Cyprus just to stay match sharp, and made the squad despite being behind Raul Rangel in the pecking order. Whether he plays a minute or not, his presence in that dressing room carries the weight of a man who saved a Neymar header that the world still talks about, who has won 5 Gold Cups, and who has seen everything this game has to offer. Some veterans just make a squad better by existing in it. Mexico face South Korea next in Guadalajara, then Czechia to round out the group. They have 3 points, a fully fit captain recovering nicely, the youngest player at the tournament hungry to set up goals, a striker who hasn't seen a net he couldn't find all season, and a man who fractured his skull and came back to score in front of 83,000 of his own people. Tell me again why you're not watching Mexico closely at this World Cup. How far do you think El Tri will go this summer? Let us know in the comments. Remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel. Also, be sure to turn on post notifications so that you never miss any new videos. Catch you in the next one. Bye.